So hello and welcome to the video. I have got three things I want to talk about today. I'm not going to stretch it to my usual list of 6 things, which is my first deviation from my normal pattern. The next deviation is that this first thing is about something that's happened really rather recently. I usually don't like to include stuff that's time sensitive in videos, as I want them to be relevant and interesting indefinitely. But this thing is actually really quite important, so I want to cover it, especially as Head for Points has probably concluded that this is a bit too dull for them to cover. Another break from my usual format is that these 3 things aren't really related. One is an update to the British Airways Executive Club, one is an update to my personal tier point planning, and one is a detail about the British Airways Executive Club that I've probably not done a good enough job so far of explaining. I've concluded that as it is the question I am most frequently asked about the club, and so if I comprehensively address it in a video, I can point people to this video when they ask me rather than having to explain it over and over again in comments. It's all to do with year ends, and I am able to segue between these 3 points quite smoothly. So if you'd like to see what's new, why what's new has thrown a spanner into my works, and why what I was planning to do was so important, stick around. Hi, I'm Matt. I've lived in 5 countries on 4 continents. I've flown over 1.4 million miles. I've visited over 100 countries, every American state, but I'm nowhere near done. So subscribe and you might pick up some hacks, hints and tips to make your next trip better. First up, British Airways has tinkered with the terms and conditions associated with the double tier points offer available when booking a BA holiday. Has any sequence in any YouTube video ever started with a more exciting preamble? I managed to find the old terms and conditions before this change, which show that a qualifying holiday has to start in the UK and must include a hotel or a car booking of no less than 5 nights, completed before the end of December 2023. Meet those conditions and the tier points associated with the flights in that holiday will be doubled. Quite straightforward. Indeed, so straightforward it appears that there was considerable wriggle room within those terms and conditions to be creative. I've previously reported that there was no need to actually check into the hotel or to pick up the car that you have rented in order to receive those bonus tier points. As these terms and conditions clearly say, booking is enough. But others have found even more creative ways of taking advantage of this offer. People were finding the very cheapest car hire available anywhere in the world and were successfully adding it to flights somewhere completely different. So if the cheapest car rental in the world is Namibia, I'm sure it isn't, but let's make this a little bit silly to try and maintain interest. They'd add a 5-day car booking in Namibia to flights to, say, Helsinki. And that was a qualifying trip per the terms and conditions, so they received the double tier points even though it was patently impossible for both parts of the holiday to actually happen. Then people realised that the bookings didn't need to coincide. So if car hire in Namibia is at its very cheapest in November, they could add 5 days of car hire in November to flights that they were taking in perhaps June. That still qualified and that still delivered the double tier points. They obviously had to wait until the second part of the holiday happened to get them, but they were receiving them. Now, one of my old school teachers had a bit of a catchphrase. There's 1 or 2 of you at the back spoiling it for the rest. And the few people who were making out like bandits by taking advantage of these terms and conditions have indeed spoiled it for the rest of us who were only looking to take advantage of the terms and conditions in a very gentle way. And that's because BA has amended the terms and conditions to close these loopholes. Now the hotel or car rental needs to fall within the dates of the flights, and you have to either stay in the hotel or pick up the car for the duration of that booking. Now, I don't really think you can blame BA for tightening these T's and C's. After all, they're probably kicking themselves that they didn't look at them more closely when they were originally launched. But it does make you pause now if you are thinking of trying something that bends those rules. Now, I have a Patreon account, link in the description below, and one of the benefits of the higher levels of membership is access to my WhatsApp group. We have over 50 members and it's quite good fun, even if I say so myself. We're all able to share news and opportunities such as error fares in a way that is much quicker than I could ever do via a video. And the group has discussed this, and we have concluded that there is no way that BA's IT is good enough to be able to know whether you have stayed in a hotel or picked up a car rental. So this could very well be a situation where a company says it's doing something, which is enough to deter those honest people who wouldn't want to break the rules, but still has no idea if others are abusing the system. It should be obvious whether a car or a hotel booking falls within the dates of the flight, so I think that element of the loophole has officially been closed. But whether you've stayed in the hotel or picked up the car, I think is going to remain very, very difficult for BA to ever know. Of course, I could be wrong, but BA's IT is very, very bad. Now these T's and C's change towards the end of June. I don't know the specific date, but stuff booked before they change will obviously still allow you to exploit these loopholes. But if you are booking today, you need to be aware that there is risk associated with making these bookings. The risk being that you spend extra money on a hotel or a car which you don't intend to use, BA finds out somehow and you don't get those bonus tier points. Now the second topic of this video does flow on from this, as I had a holiday which took advantage of one of these loopholes built into the plan I was putting together to renew my gold status with BA. I talked about it in this video, so this change to the T's and C's presents me with a problem. Briefly, the plan was to position somewhere like Belfast, to go from there across to probably Bucharest in a BA holiday, earning the double tier points. Bridge across from Budapest to Abu Dhabi, probably with a Qatar redemption, before taking just about the best tier point earning opportunity that exists anywhere in the world at the moment, which is to fly Sri Lankan from Abu Dhabi across to Jakarta. Then from Jakarta I was planning to get up to Taipei on Cathay Pacific, avoiding their annoying P-class fares which still earn 0 tier points according to British Airways. And then I'd unwind everything back to Abu Dhabi, buy a paid economy ticket on Qatar to get me back up to Bucharest, which would get those last few tier points I would need to get me to 1500. And I'd do it all in one trip. And it wasn't going to be cheap. Now flights to Bucharest and Sofia can be very, very inexpensive, but I need to go in the early part of September, and flights to Eastern Europe in that time window are still quite expensive. And that total also excludes the cost of the redemptions on Qatar to get across to Abu Dhabi, but I had an eye on making good and interesting and varied videos as much as I did on renewing my status at the lowest possible cost. And I have to say, planning this was a right pain because I had 6 separate tickets, all of which are very closely nested within each other, and it was a right pain to try and plan it all out, particularly as the specific destinations I were looking at weren't fixed. And before I was able to make the booking, BA changed these terms and conditions, which has ripped 240 tier points out of my plan. So I have 4 options. The first is to do it anyway and hope BA doesn't notice and hope that I still get those bonus tier points. Second was to actually pick up the car in Bucharest in order to comply with these new terms and conditions. That might sound easy enough, but the problem was that I needed a minimum of 7 days away from Bucharest to get all the way to Taipei and back again, and because I actually like to breathe when I get to a city and spend a little bit of time looking around, I was actually planning on being away from Bucharest for 11 days. That would mean I would need to book a car for the full 11 days period, twice as long as I needed to before these terms and conditions changed, and I'd have to rent it and find somewhere to park it for those 11 days. And that added a lot of cost and inconvenience to the trip. Indeed, those bonus tier points were actually not that cheap once you factor in the full cost of an 11-day car rental. The third option was to build in yet more flights to get back the 240 tier points I was losing. And option 4 was to abandon the whole thing and try and come up with something else. Now, if I was doing this just for myself, I'd be sorely tempted to roll the dice, take the trip and gamble on still getting those bonus tier points. But as I am broadcasting what I am doing, and as I am generally speaking a rule follower, I don't feel comfortable to publicly and ostentatiously break the rules. I don't work with BA, but I don't want to sour any future relationship by breaking the rules publicly now. So extending the car booking to 11 days, as I've said, is quite expensive, and finding a way of getting those 240 tier points back with extra flights is really quite difficult, and it's quite expensive. So I'm going to abandon the plan and start again. Kind of. I'm going to split my renewal into 2 parts, and I'm going to get about half the tier points I need in each of those trips. I still want to experience and report on that Sri Lankan trip, so I'm going to go to Jakarta nevertheless. I'll drop the Belfast bit, I'll drop the holiday to Bucharest, and I will still get a redemption down to Abu Dhabi. But I'm going to buy an interesting flight back from Abu Dhabi that does deliver some tier points and should make for an interesting video. And I'm still going to do this during my grace period when the benefits of having gold status will still hold. Another benefit of joining my Patreon is that senior members get access to quarterly travel planning videos where I talk about this sort of stuff in detail, so I won't go into more detail here, but check out my Patreon if you'd like to find out more. Then I'm going to defer the second half of my renewal, and I'm going to do a traditional US tier point run. The very best fares usually have a 6-month advanced purchase rule, and I found some very interesting options from Dublin actually to the west coast of the United States next February-March, which will allow me to finally plan, book and execute a West Coast USA tier point run, which is something you guys have been asking me to do for a long time, and it feels very comfortably within the remit of what this channel is all about. And that will include a brand new video about Matrix ITA, which I'm actually going to be able to get on with quite soon because I want to get this booked. Now I'll be travelling outside of my grace period, which will cost me some bonus avios and may consign me to lesser lounges. But I don't really have a choice, and even taking into account that loss of avios, taking this West Coast USA run should actually work out a cheaper way of getting the tier points than all that kerfuffle through to Asia. So hopefully that will be good news for you guys, because I think it'll produce some very interesting content. Now I mentioned grace periods 3 times in the last 2 minutes, which brings me to the third thing I want to talk about today, which is how the Executive Club years end. I saw on Flyer Talk that I may inadvertently have confused some people with the wording that I used in a previous video, so I'm going to cover it again today. Everybody's year ends on the 8th of whatever month is your year end. On the morning of the 9th, everybody's tier point balance resets to 0. Everyone, no exceptions. Lifetime tier points obviously roll on indefinitely, but the annual tier point total resets to 0. It's a very depressing day. There are 2 things of significance concerning this reset. The first concerns carrying points back into a previous year. Let's say you ended the year on 1490 tier points, just short of the 1500 you need for gold. And let's say you earn another 10 tier points on the 9th, just after your tier point balance has reset to 0. If you call BA, they should agree to move those 10 tier points back into the closed year to get you up to the 1500 you needed to achieve gold. It's not a published policy, and they may say no, but it is widely reported that they will do this. And it's also occasionally reported that people have been given status even if they fell just slightly short without actually having to ask for it. No one knows what the specific tolerances are that BA will accept. If you end your year 500 tier points short of gold and get those tier points within a week of the renewal, I don't think BA would let you move 500 tier points back a year. And if you were only 5 tier points short but didn't get them until 4, 5, 6 months after your new year started, again, I don't think BA would let you move those tier points back. So somewhere between those extremes of the points shortfall and the time in which you can catch up those points, BA has discretion to move them back to achieve status goals. You can never move points forward in time. If you ended the year on 2000 tier points, so 500 more than you needed for gold, it would be great if you could lump them forward and get a head start on your renewal in the next year. But no, you can never move tier points forward in time. Console yourself that you are 500 tier points closer to lifetime gold. This is not the grace period. This is a discretionary period where BA, at their discretion, may be able to help you out. The grace period is a 7-ish week period after your year expires, where the status you held prevails. My year ends on the 8th of August, and in the year that is about to end, I have accumulated a whopping 20 tier points. That's a little bit short of what I need to get back to gold, so I will soft land to silver, as the rules of the Executive Club dictate, but not until the end of my grace period on the 1st of October this year. So on the 9th of August, my tier points balance will be 0, but I will still have my gold status for another 7 weeks. And that is where the opportunity sits for those of you that have some control over when you can travel to renew your status. If you can travel during your grace period, you will have the benefits of the expiring status, but the points you earn will go towards the resumption of that status. And if you can get all 1500 tier points that you need within that grace period, which is what I was planning to do, you will never actually fall into the silver tier. Now, travelling with gold status gives you access to the first wing and to first class lounges. It also gives you 100% bonus avios compared with only 50% if you travel as a silver card holder, and that's on BA and some of its partner airlines. Plus there are other benefits of gold, such as having access to additional reward availability that I actually value quite highly. And I will forego all of those gold benefits now when I make my US tier point run, but I will cope. Now, the reason why the grace period is the sweet spot for renewal is that it maximises the time that you will have the status that you're achieving. When you achieve a higher status level, it prevails for the rest of the year you're in, the entirety of the following year, plus the 7-week grace period at the end of that second year. So if I was able to get 1500 tier points before the 30th of September, it would last me until the 8th of August 2024, which is the year that I'd be in, the following year, which is the 8th of August 2025, plus the grace period, which would take me through to the 30th of September 2025, over 2 years of gold status. Some frequent flyer schemes, such as Turkish are lauded for having 2-year membership cycles, but BA's effectively does too, if you have some control over when you renew your status. And my final point here is to be wary of getting tier points unnecessarily. As I say, it can be a 2-year scheme, and if you time it right, you only need to get 1500 points every other year. If you achieved gold for the first time in the year that's just ending, your status will then prevail for the year that's just starting. If you get 1500 tier points again in this year that's just started, you'll be renewing status that you've already got. And that sounds like a bit of a waste of time and money to me. So that's a quick refresher of how the year end of the BA Executive Club actually works. Which is relevant, as I was planning to take full advantage of the grace period to effect my renewal, which is now scuppered by the tweak to BA's terms and conditions in their double tier points holiday offer. I told you there'd be some good segues in this video. So thanks for watching. I hope it was interesting and relevant. I hope it held your attention. Please give the video a like if it did. Hey, give it a like if it didn't. And leave me a comment as well. Has this cleared up any doubts that you may have had in your mind as to exactly how the year end works? Please consider subscribing if you're new. I've already mentioned my Patreon account, but check it out. And I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.